Hey everyone, welcome to Yoga with Anna. I hope you're doing well. Things you're going to want for today's class. You will want possibly a block if you have one. You'll definitely want some sort of blanket or towel, something you can roll up. You can also do what we're going to start with a block, but I really suggest having something like a blanket or something soft. So how we're going to start class today is you're going to take your blanket. I want you to roll it up like a burrito so that you have kind of this blanket Rito. And you're going to take your blanket Rito and have your block in your bikes. We are going to use it. You're going to place your blanket Rito here just down towards the edge of your mat. And you're going to lay back onto it so that it nestles right at your shoulder blades. I'm going to keep my knees bent, feet on the ground. I'm just going to open up my chest. My hands are going to be facing the ceiling as I lay over this. So you might, if you need to adjust any, up or down an inch, you can do that. I just want you to find this baby back bend. If it feels like too much of a back bend, you can just undo your blanket a little bit. But I want you to feel a little bit of this pressure into your mid back. And then I want you to come and just close your eyes and tune into your breath. What changes do you notice in your breath right away, just having this little bit of pressure on your rib cage and spine? So we're not changing our breath yet. We're just kind of exploring it. Noticing how we feel. Hopefully this baby back bend feels good. We're getting a little bit of openings through our chest as well. I want you to make sure that you can have these broadness through your collarbones. You don't want the tips of your shoulders to be poking up towards the ceiling. So we're inviting our chest to open and our back to open at the same time. Now start to engage your breath a little more. See if you can find those big inhales that inflate you like a balloon from your belly, not just up, but out to the sides and back. So that as you get to the top of your inhale, you can actually feel your back ribs pushing into that blanket. When you get to the top and you feel that bit of pressure into the blanket, soft release through your mouth. Let it go. Let's do a few more like that. Big inhale. Feel that little bit of press at the top. A little bit of press down on that blanket. You should even feel maybe a little bit of core activation there. And then soft. One more like that. Really trying to get our ribs to expand. Soft. And this time when you take the big inhale, we're going to engage our core a little more on the exhale. Feel our ribs pulling down. Feeling engagement through our low belly. One more like that. Big inhale. Engaged exhale. Pulling my ribs down, engaging into my low belly. And then we'll let that go. Soft breath. Go ahead and remove the blanket out from underneath you. You may already just feel a little more relaxation. Just this gentle opening of your upper back can be really powerful. And set your blanket off to the side. Or if you don't have a block, I invite you to keep your blanket because this next part, I want you to have something to squeeze so you can use your blanket to squeeze between your legs. I'm going to use a block. Laying on my back and put the block between my legs. So I want to keep my thighs coming straight out from my hips. I don't want them coming in too close to my chest. And it's going to be way harder if I have them out here too. So I'm just going to have 90-degree angle. Arms are going to go out like a goalpost. As I inhale, find that big inhale that expands into my low back. I'm going to drop my knees towards my right. With my exhale, I'm pulling my ribs down, connecting to my core to pull me back up. We're going to go to the other side. Inhale over. Exhale, that connects to your core, pulls your ribs down all the way up. One more each side. One more to the left. Big inhale. Exhale brings you back up. You should really feel your side waist working as you come back up. This time we're going to lower all the way down to their knees. This back arm's going to come up a little bit because we're going to adjust ourselves so that our knees are perfectly stacked. We have a squeeze here. So my hips are level, my knees are stacked. Arms are in front. I'm going to squeeze that block as I open up. So notice here, we don't really necessarily need to get our hand to the floor. In fact, I want you to really focus on making sure this shoulder here doesn't start to do weird things. Keep that openness through your chest. And we're squeezing that block, keeping our knees stacked to lock out our low back and invite this twist into our rib cage. Take a couple of deep breaths here, sending your breath into your upper back, expanding through your ribs. And bring that arm back over, back to center. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you might need to shift your hips. We're going to roll over, and then take a second. You might need to shift again just to make sure that your knees are perfectly stacked, your hips are level. I'm squeezing that block to keep my low back just from taking this twist. Opening up. And maybe your arm comes to the ground, maybe it doesn't. Don't try to force it. Keep that openness through your chest. A few deep breaths here. Inviting that inhale into your back ribs. Squeezing that block with your exhales. One more. Release it down. Come on up. Go ahead and take your block out from beneath your legs, or between your legs, and come on to all fours. I'll put that aside because we're going to use that later. We're just going to start going through some rounds of cat and cow. Already notice how maybe your cat and cow feels differently after doing some of that chest opening and core activation. So with your own breath, find your inhales bringing you into cat or cow, and your exhales rounding you into cat. A little movement into this if it feels good. You can make it more organic. We're just going to go for a few more breaths here. And after your next time in cat, bring yourself down to a neutral spine. So my neutral spine, you can see here, I could balance a cup of water on here. I don't have an arch. I'm not sagging I'm not sagging my belly or my hips. I'm not sagging into my shoulders. I've got tone. We want to keep that as we start to just push our hips back. So this rock back that I'm doing, I want to keep this nice connected torso. And I just want to push back through my hips. I don't want to actually lower towards the ground. I'm just kind of shifting forward and back. How far can you go back before you do start to drop to the ground? We're practicing this shift back through our hips. Let's do two more here. And after your next one, come back to all fours. We're going to go into bird dog. So I'm already in a great spinal position for my bird dog. There's no arch in my back. My hips are level. I'm going to bring my right leg back. Press my toes into the ground, making sure I have a little bit of a lift. So again, it's that connecting my ribs to my pelvis. So I don't have, my ribs flaring, my pelvis dropping, my belly turned off, my low back arching, all these things that we don't want in this position. Nice long spine. Left arm reaches away. And then I'm not going to say that my arms and legs are going to lift. They're going to reach away from each other. And this back foot will come off the ground. I'm kicking away with my right leg. I'm reaching away with my left arm. I'm going to maintain this spinal position as I bring in knee towards elbow. Torso is steady. Limbs are moving around it. When we find stability in our core, it allows for mobility in our extremities. Hold this one out. Big breath in. Then we're going to do that shift back. So if you want to, you can bring this opposite arm to the floor if you're having a hard time with balance. Otherwise, see if you can just kick back. Come forward. Kick back. It's almost like I'm trying to kick a ball that's behind me. 2 more. And release it down. We're going to go to the other side. So take a little wiggle if you need to release that one. And then find your nice neutral spine. Left leg reaches out behind. Right arm reaches up in front. My thumb is pointed towards the ceiling. And again, right away, I'm making sure that I have that tone in my low belly, that my ribs are connecting. I don't have this, rib that's dropping. I want it in line with my pelvic bone. From here, I'm reaching away as my foot comes off the ground. Reaching long as I go into arms and legs. Spine stays stable. Third one, we're going to hold it out. And then do that little shift. It's just straight back, kicking a ball away. Couple more. Good, then hand to the ground. Come back, child's pose. Give yourself a little wiggle. Let that go. We're going to be working on some variations of poses. And one of the poses in particular is going to be Warrior 3. So I'm going to ask you to remember Bird Dog in Warrior 3 and in some of the other poses of that core connection. It's so important for finding balance and stability. Go ahead and come back to your hands and knees. Tuck your toes under. Push back, downward facing dog. Pedal your feet out. Shift your hips a little bit if it feels good. Say hello to your first downward dog of the day. And then find a spot where you can just hold. With an inhale, I'm going to have you round forward. Cat spine. Plank pose. Exhale, push it back. We're going to do this 2 more times. Inhale. Coming forward. Plank pose. Exhale, push it back. 1 more time. Rounding forward in a plank pose and pushing the ground away. Push it back, downward facing dog. Get a little bouncy into your feet. And you can either step, or you can use this little bouncy action as a little spring. Boop. Bring you right up to your hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, soften your knees. Grab opposite elbows. Let it hang. Roll it all the way up to stand. Inhale, reach your arms overhead, Tadasana. Exhale, hands to heart center. Send your hips back. Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Inhale, reach out through your spine, lengthen. Exhale, go a little deeper in your forward bend. Inhale as you step your right leg back. Right knee comes to the ground. And you may want a block for this next part. Inhale, reaching up into low lunge. Again, we don't want to sink into our low back in this low lunge. I'm squeezing through my back glute so that I'm pressing from here to stretch here. Reaching, exhale, hands to the ground or to your block. Shift your hips back, just like we were practicing, shifting them back, half splits. So if half splits is feeling like a lot, you can be up on here, you can even be here, or you can have your hands on the ground, but keep that long spine, keep that shift back. One more time, inhale, lift, lengthening through my hip flexor. Exhale, shifting my hips back, my spine stays long to start to straighten that leg. Inhale, back to low lunge, hands to the ground, step back, high plank. You can lower your knees to the ground or not, lower through a push-up. Take a second here just to do one cobra. Lift up, one cobra. Come on down. Now we're going to have a little fun and play with some mid-back strengthening and activation exercises. We're going to explore how that might change your cobra. So I'm going to have you bring your arms out like goalposts. They're coming out from your shoulders. Arms are at 90 degrees. So my elbow, my forearm, upper arm are forming a 90-degree angle here. My head is on the ground. I'm pressing my forehead into my mat. I'm pretending like I'm shoving my arms into a wall so that there's actually this feeling of broadness. As I do this next move, I want you to really focus on not just trying to squeeze your shoulder blades together. So you won't actually shorten the distance of your arms towards your body. They're going to stay pressing against that imaginary wall. You might stay here and just work that broadening feeling, or you start to press into that wall and lift your elbows off the ground. As my elbows lift, I'm still pushing my forearms into this imaginary wall. Lower it down. Lift, pushing away. Lower. Last time, hold. Keep pushing into that imaginary wall. Find a little bit of tone in your belly. That can really help. And then just little pulses up. And it's up, not together. Up, 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 up. 2 more. Release it down. You should have really felt this mid-back working. So now we're going to go back to our cobra. And I want you to really just think how it's changed. Hopefully, you'll notice that you have so much more assistance from these mid-back muscles. So going back to my cobra, I'm lifting up, lowering down. I'm going to do one more. When those mid-back muscles are active in cobra, it feels so much lighter. Come on down, press it back, downward facing dog. Paddle your feet out. Step your right foot forward, lower down, lifting up, low lunge. Inhale, reach, pushing through that back hip. Hands to the ground or your block, or maybe even just your hips. Shifting back to come into half splits. So I'm not going to stay here and just try to jam my leg down. I want to shift back, finding that room in my hip. Coming forward one more time, low lunge, reach. Hands to the ground, shift back, half splits. Go ahead, step forward, standing forward bend. Press the ground away as you come up. Big inhale at the top. Exhale, hands to heart center. Take one breath here. Your next inhale, arms reach up overhead. Exhale, come forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, halfway lift. Hips shift back, spine is long. And I'm looking up because I'm looking over here, but I want you to have your spine, including the tip of your head, long. Exhale, all the way down. You'll step your right leg back. And then take your left foot and kind of pivot it out to the side a little bit so that both hands are on the inside of your left foot. Drop your right knee down to the ground. Left arm reaches forward like I'm trying to grab something off my couch. My thumb is up. And then it twists up and open, reaching towards my back heel. And I'm thinking about opening through my chest here, reaching long. One more breath, reversing that back. I'm pressing into the ground and lifting my hips. And this next thing I'm going to do is just a fun option. If it doesn't work in your body, just step back, step forward. But sometimes you might find a little bit of bounciness. Maybe you're feeling hoppy. If you are feeling a little hoppy, then I invite you to kind of find that bounciness, keep a good press on the ground, jump switch your legs. Lower your left knee down to the ground. Right foot is on the outside. Right arm reaches away, reaches long like I'm trying to grab something before it reaches up and rotates around. I'm thinking chest open. If I can only go to here before this starts to happen, then that's where I want you to stay and really focus on the lengthening out part. Reversing it back down. We're going to do that one more time. So if you're feeling hoppy like I am, lift that back leg up. Give yourself a couple of little hops. And then jump switch it out. Back knee to the ground. Reaching forward, then rotating open. You can stay here. Or if you feel like you have a really good reach and you have the mobility in this back leg to bend that knee in, then you can go ahead and grab that foot. Give yourself a little bit of a twisted quad stretch. Release it down, bring it back. One more time if you're feeling hoppy. Jump, switch it out. Left knee to the ground. Right arm reaches forward, in, back, and around. You can stay here, or if you just on the other side, knee bends. And if this easily connects, then go for it. If you find yourself like just struggling to have that happen, let it go and just do this part. One more breath here, sending that inhale into your ribs, finding a connection to your pelvis with your exhale. And release. Step it back, downward facing dog. Take a breath here. Inhale your right leg up and behind, one-legged dog. Shift it forward, knee towards nose. Press the ground away even harder than you think you can. And see if you can slowly step that foot between your hands. And before we just rise up into high lunge, I want you to take a second to really feel the connection of your foot on the ground. My big toe presses into the ground. My pinky toe side is connected. My heel is connected. My arch is lifting. From that strong connection of my foot, I can just unfurl into my high lunge. One more breath like this, and we're going to have a little fun in our high lunge. I'm going to take it into a little twisty action. So my right arm is going to come down, I'm going to lean over towards my right bent knee. So this is a little balance happening here too. So if this makes you feel very unstable, then just lessen how much you bend. Back up to center, we're going to switch sides. So my left hand is going to come to my right knee. I'm going to lean over towards my left. Make sure your pelvis is still pointed forward. It's not opening up with you. Good. One more time. Reach the center. Then twist open towards that bent knee. Reaching your arms away. My right arm is going to reach back, reversing my twisted lunge. One more breath here. Turn to center. Hands to the ground. Press it back, downward facing dog. Or, if you need a little break, take a child's pose. Just take a second here. Take a few breaths. Then we're going to move on. Left leg lifts, one-legged dog. As we shift forward, I'm pressing the ground away so hard. I'm bringing that knee in as close to my nose as possible so that I can shift that foot as close as I can between my hands. Again, connecting to my foot before I lift. My big toe presses. My pinky toe connects. My heel is grounded. My arch lifts. From that strong connection, I come up. Now we're going to take this over to our left. So left hand on your knee, right arm reaches across. Back to center, other way. Right arm down, left arm reaches across. Back to center, going into the twist. So I'm twisting towards my bent leg, reaching my arms wide, keeping my pelvis square to the front. I don't want it turning with me. Reaching my arms apart, back arm comes down to my thigh, and I reverse my twisted lunge. Back to the twist, back to center, come on down, downward facing dog. Take one breath here, and soften your knees, press back into your hips. Get ready to come forward. Your choice to step or hop. Come forward, standing forward bend. Inhale, halfway lift, extend. Exhale. Come on down even more. Press the ground away to come all the way up to stand. Exhale, hands to heart center. Now we're going to work on a few variations of chair pose. Starting with a chair pose where our toes, our feet, our thighs, everything is together. So there's different reasons for why you might choose one variation of a pose over another. And it's really helpful to try them all and just to notice how they land in your body, because every body is going to feel them a little differently. You might prefer one for strengthening and one for stretching, or, it's good to explore this. So we're first feet together, sitting back into my chair. My thighs are squeezing towards each other. Especially in this variation, it can really work. That pulling in, pushing my thighs towards each other as I push my hips back even more. Arms reach long. Finding a little bit of tone in my belly so that I don't just dump into my low back. On my breath, stand all the way up. Now we're going to go into a chair where your feet are about hip distance apart. So you're thinking ankles right over your hip joint. Sitting back, Same thing. We still want to feel that drawing in, but now we've got to control it. We don't want our knees slapping together. Notice if this one feels different. Where do you feel it differently? Do you like it more? Do you like it less? Sometimes it's good to consider if and then why. Is it easier? Does it feel better in your body? All these feelings are valid. Come all the way up. One more variation. This one, our feet are going to come as wide as our mat. So now we have a wide stance as we go into our chair. Starting out the same way, shifting those hips back. And on this one, you really got to fight the tendency for your knees to want to come in. So you're really going to ask these outer hips to do a little more work. See if you can go a little deeper and keep reaching out in front. Keep connecting to your core. One more breath here. All the way up. So we're going to do one more chair, and I'm going to let you choose which of those three you want to do. It doesn't have to be your favorite. Maybe it's the one that challenged you the most, and you want to work on it some more. So all of them are good. You choose which one you want to practice one more time. So come into either narrow hip or wide. Sit on back into your chair pose. One more breath here. And then start to shift your weight over towards your leg, or your left leg, as you step back to a high lunge. One breath, reach. Exhale, open up. Warrior two. Give yourself a second to kind of adjust your warrior two if needed. And bring your hands to heart center. Bend into that front knee as much as you can. Make sure this knee is tracking over that second toe. Make sure this back leg almost has like I'm rolling it in. I don't want to be shoving my hip forward in the socket here. Hands to heart center. And then think about pulling my feet together, activating through my inner thighs. Nice and soft through my shoulders. Nice and soft through my gaze. From that stability of my lower body and the softness of my upper body, my arms are just going to float out, unfurling like little fern coils as they come out. Just softly reach. You can even let them kind of wiggle around a little bit. But feel almost like a lightness, like your arms are floating in water. One more breath here. And shift it over, coming into side angle. And before we start reaching anywhere, I want you to keep your hand on your hip. Because again, sometimes what happens when we go into side angle is when we start to reach, we'll push this back hip forward and kind of reach into this. But really, we want to keep this hip back. We don't want to press our femur, our thigh bone forward in its socket. So this is activated. I'm going to reach my arm out in front. I'm trying to grab a doorknob in front of me or a rubber band or something, and then I pull it back in from this integration of my shoulders. Then I reach up, twisting through my rib cage. I'm still keeping this hip back where it needs to be. Then maybe you bring your hand down or to a block. But notice if you come down to the ground, if you start to do more of this shifting your hip forward, dumping into your low back stuff. Come on up, warrior two, straighten your leg. We're going to go into triangle, and this is another one that we are going to explore different variations and how they land and why you might choose one or the other. And then you get to kind of integrate that, understand how your body feels each one. So the first one we're going to do, got my left foot pointed forward, right foot parallel with the back of my mat, arms reach wide. Keeping my torso long, my left arm comes to my leg, right arm reaches. I'm just going to lean over to the side like a rainbow. This one is very much a lateral side bend. I'm going to choose this one if I really want a nice lateral stretch. The arm is reaching. My hips are actually level. I'm not shifting back. I'm just reaching over. And I'm not going to go down as far because I'm really focusing and opening up through the side. One more breath. Coming on up. The next one we're going to do is more of the traditional entry into triangle. So you start with kind of that shift, little bump of your hip. So it's a bump to the side and then kind of a bump back, so more of a hinge. And as you come over, both side waists are long. Coming down to my ankle, to my block. So in this one, it's less about the side stretch and more about this rotation through my rib cage. So again, I want to set myself up to really get good rotation. I'm going to reach my right arm out in front of me, pull back my shoulder so I have integration of my scapula and my shoulder blade on my back, and then twist open. Again, this hip, we don't want it pushing forward. We want it to remain active. Lift it all the way up. The last variation of triangle that we're going to play with is where we enter it through side angle. So come on down, come into your side angle, but don't rest your hand on your knee. You can bring it down to a block, the floor, or even your ankle. So I'm going to use a block. So I'm in side angle, finding all those parts of side angle already in place. And then for this one, again, I'm integrating my shoulder, opening up, and I'm pressing the ground away, doing that shift back with my hips to straighten my leg. So this isn't just a table leg that I'm jamming down. I'm actually doing that shift to find more space. Reach it on up. Triangle 3 ways. They're all terrific. You might like one more than the other. Now shift yourself so that both your feet are facing forward. Left foot in front. We're going to go into pyramid pose. So if you have your block handy, you'll probably want that now. Reaching both arms up. Coming forward, hips are level. Hands come to the block. Maybe they come to the ground. Maybe they stay on your hips or your low back. Take a second here. Coming into your pyramid pose. Then start to shift forward in this front leg. And as I shift this front leg forward, I want to pull that same hip back. So I don't just want to drive my knee forward. I don't want just this. I actually want to shift my body forward while my hip stays back. So you can even put your hand on your hip if you want a little extra help here. From here, I'm going to tap my foot in, bring it back. Tap my right foot in, bring it back. One more time, tap my right foot in, bring it back, coming all the way back up. And I'm going to shift myself backwards to come to standing at the rear of my mat. We're going to practice Warrior 3 different ways because it's fun to have options. So the first one we're going to practice is through having a step forward. And this is a really common way that we practice it in yoga. Where you step forward, you're in high lunge. So again, to do this one, we're going to come and we're going to lean over this front leg. And we don't want to push this knee forward. We want to shift that hip back. It's subtle, but it's powerful, and it's going to help you a ton with finding balance. Hands come to heart center. Press your hands firmly together. This is going to help you connect to your core. Still reaching my left hip back so you come even more forward. Lifting my right leg. Maybe it stays a little bit. Keep this knee soft at first. If it feels really stable, then start to straighten. More breath here. Lower it back down. high lunge, and step it forward. So that was from high lunge into warrior three. Now we're going to practice it another pretty common way, which is from standing into warrior three. So again, we're staying on our left foot and pressing the ground away with this left foot, getting taller. Right knee lifts. I want to maintain this bird dog. Even in this position right here, I have connection with my core. My ribs are engaged, stacked over my pelvis. That's not going to change as I shift backwards. Hands to heart center. Shifting my hips back, pushing that ball away. My knee is staying bent so that I can keep drawing that hip back. Once I find this place of stability, then I can start to straighten if it works in my body. Keep vigorously reaching back with the leg that's long. And exhale, push into your standing leg to come up. Release. One more variation. This one's going to be from the bottom up. So we're going to start this one from pyramid pose. And I invite you to have a block for this one, for sure. Coming into pyramid pose with your block. We already kind of practiced this one. Shifting forward. I'm still drawing my left hip back. I'm going to soften through my left knee. I don't want it to stick straight. That's going to prevent me from getting much pushing back through this hip. Lifting this back leg. From the ground, I'm going to feel my foot press the ground away, connecting to my hip, to my core, pressing up through the block. And maybe hands come to heart center. Lifting it up. Releasing it down. 3 different ways to enter warrior three. We're going to do that same thing on the other side. So, starting with your choice of chair pose. So maybe do the same one you did last time or try a different variation. Sitting down, chair pose. This time, my left foot starts to unweight. Actually, I'm going to switch over to this side so I'm facing you guys when we come into our warrior two. Stepping up, high lunge. Opening up, warrior two. Hands come to heart center. Feel your legs squeezing towards each other. Making sure my knee is tracking over my second toe. Upper body is soft. Arms unfoil. They unfurl. Like little fern fronds out to my side. Keep that softness through your shoulders. Again, think about having your arms on water. They're just floating. You can even imagine how that would feel just in your body to have that weightless feeling. And then bring it over, side angle. Don't do anything with this top arm yet. First, connect to your hips, making sure that this guy isn't doing anything weird, like pushing forward. Then my arm reaches out in front. I pull my arm back. I'm bringing my shoulder blade onto my rib cage. So when I turn open, I have more space through my rib cage to do so. One more breath. And bring it on up. Straighten your front leg. We're going into our triangle exploration. So starting first with the lateral stretch version of triangle. Right arm on my leg, left arm reaches up, big inhale, and I come over to the side. So you can see this one is long, this one is bending. I'm getting a really nice side stretch in this variation of triangle. One more breath. Bring it on up. Second triangle. Hip shifts. I send that butt back a little bit. Bringing it down to my block, to my ankle, to the floor. Keeping my spine long, my side waist long. Again, pulling my shoulder blade back and then opening up. One more breath and bring it on up. Our last one is from the ground up. So we come into side angle. Maybe you have a block. I'm just going to have my hand near my ankle, opening up, and then shifting that hip back, straightening that leg, coming into triangle. One more breath, and then come all the way up, shifting your back foot forward. Right foot is facing the front, left foot is behind facing the front, coming into our pyramid pose. So again, get your block if you want it. I highly suggest using blocks for this stuff. Shifting my hips back as I come into pyramid. Hips are level, spine is long. If you have your block, maybe hands on the ground, start to shift forward a little bit, pulling your right hip back. Then back foot comes in towards heel, steps back. Heel, back, one more time. Lifting up, high lunge. Straightening it back. Then shifting to the back of your mat. Remember, our first variation of Warrior 3 is going to be from a high lunge. So step forward into that high lunge. Hands to heart center. Shift into this right knee, pulling that hip back. Bird dog in my back. Tone in my belly, tone in my low back. Nice long spine. Still pulling this hip back as I come forward. That foot lifts. My knee is still bent. I'm reaching back with my back heel. If I find stability here, then I can start to straighten. Keep pressing your hands firmly into each other. And then bring it back. High lunge. Step forward. Second one, we're going from standing back. So right foot presses into the ground. I get taller. Left leg lifts. Hands at heart center. I shift that leg back. Pressing. Maybe you have to tap, that's fine. Pressing that heel away. You stay here or you start to straighten. Whatever feels good in your body. Press into your standing foot to bring yourself back up. One more variation. Give yourself a little shift. Shimmy it out. Warrior 3 requires so much of our legs, of our core. So it can really be warming and start to fatigue you a little bit. So remember this one. Starting from pyramid. Shifting forward as I bend my right knee. Pulling my right hip back. Spine is long, low belly engaged. Think bird dog. Back leg lifts. This one, you really want to concentrate on that push from the floor. So I'm pushing the floor away. And from that push, I'm connecting to my hip, to my core, reaching this leg long. Arms come to heart center. One more breath. Step it forward, wiggle it out. Good job. That one was a lot. Go ahead, take your block, put it off to the side. We're going to come down to the ground. We're going to come through a low squat. Give yourself a little shift back and forth. Stretch through those hips that we just worked a ton doing Warrior 3. And come on down to your bottom. And all the way to your back. So in the spirit of exploring things in 3 different ways, we're going to do the same thing with bridge pose. So, first bridge. Feet are together. Keep your legs, your thighs squeezing towards each other. I'm going to start with my hands on the ground, pressing up through my hips. You might feel your thighs trying to pull apart from each other. Fight that and squeeze your inner thighs together as you come up into this variation of bridge pose. You start to nestle your shoulders under if it feels good. But this short stance bridge doesn't always feel good coming up high in it. But you get to explore and figure that out, because everybody feels these poses a little differently. Squeezing your thighs towards each other, go ahead and roll it on down. Next step, feet hip distance apart. So this is kind of your traditional bridge stance. Feet hip distance apart, in by your butt. Lifting your hips up. You can start to shimmy your shoulders underneath. Notice the difference this change in stance makes in where you feel it, the ease you have in the pose, how it affects how hard you work, the thoughts you have even can change depending on your experience of a pose. Pressing those knees over your toes. Lift a little higher if you want. And then lower it on down. Last one is going to be that wide-legged variation. So feet come to the outside of your mat. Exhale, pressing up into bridge, wide-legged bridge. Start to nestle your shoulders underneath if that feels good. Otherwise, just stay pressing your palms into the ground. And again here, notice the change. Is it harder? Is it easier? Does it stretch better? There's so many different ways we can all experience this. And release it down. Give yourself a little hug. Wiggle your hips out. And then rock and roll your way up. All the way to seated. And I'm going to be facing you this way. If you prefer, you can be any direction you want. But we're going to come into Dandasana, our staff pose. If you like to use a blanket to give you a little lift of your hips, grab that and put it under, just right underneath your sit bones, just to give you a little lift. Inhale, lift your spine long, press your thighs into the ground. So we have this counteraction of our thighs pressing into the ground and our spine trying to get longer. It's really an active pose. And because this is all about trying some fun variations of things, I'm going to invite you to try this next transition with me. If it doesn't work in your body, then we're just going to go into a straddle Upavista Konasana, so you can get into that whichever way you want. But if you want to try my little way, we're going to start by just lifting, keeping my spine long, lifting my right leg, setting it down, lifting my left leg, setting it down, shifting myself back just slightly, pushing my hands into the ground, lifting both legs, coming into my straddle. I'm going to do that one more time, but this time my hands are going to be in the center. I'm going to bring my feet towards each other and then bring them wide into straddle. Oh boy, if you did that with me, you are probably feeling this in your quads. So shake them out a little bit. Take a second here to adjust yourself, finding that tall spine, pressing your thighs into the ground. Left arm is going to reach out long on your left leg as we reach across. So this one is a side stretch. We're going to do a few variations of Upavista Konasana, starting with this beautiful lateral side stretch. Bringing it up. This one is more of a twist and a hamstring stretch. So I'm going to start, inhale, exhale, lining myself up so my left leg is kind of right in front of me. Spine is long. I start to walk my hands out. So I'm bringing myself over my left leg. I'm going to flex my toes, point, flex, and point. One more time, come all the way up. We're going over to the right side, starting with that lateral stretch. So with my palm facing up, my right arm reaches long down my leg. Maybe it comes to the inside. Left arm reaches long, pinky turns towards the ground. Come on over. One more breath here. And back up to center. Going into the twist and more of a hamstring stretch. So inhale, lengthen. Exhale, twisting towards my right leg. Inhale, lengthen long, and then start to walk your hands forward. This might be enough. If you notice yourself starting to round right here, then just work on finding that length and pushing this thigh into the ground. You're going to get all the benefits. Flex that foot, point your toes, back and forth a few more times, working through that calf muscle. And walk yourself back to center. One more direction, going out straight in the middle. Inhale, nice and long spine. Exhale, start to walk your hands out. And again, this isn't a stretch that you want to force yourself into and condense down into. You could even give yourself a little break and just be here, right? Right, so walk yourself up, keeping that long spine as far as you can go and still maintain a soft breath. You should feel a stretch, but it shouldn't be so intense that your body feels like it's just trying to condense around it in a negative way. Walk your hands back up. Bring your legs into center. Give them a little shimmy. Move on to hands and knees. We're going to go into pigeon pose. So I'm going to go from hands and knees. If you prefer to go from down dog, your choice. So I'm going to bring my right knee, right shin across my mat. I start to walk this back. And I'm not going to go down all the way down yet. I'm actually going to lift up. Think about drawing my thigh bones into my pelvis. Spine lengthens. I'm going to take a second in this position to just do a little bit of a shift side to side. Opening up through those hips. And maybe you find a particular spot you want to work on, or you stay there and then start to come down into your full pigeon. Even down here, you can do a little bit of shifting. Make sure you can still find a full breath. Can you send that inhale into your back ribs? Can you soften even more with your exhale? One more. Start to walk your hands back up. Shifting back to your knees or back to down dog, whichever you prefer. Switch to the other side. Left leg, shin comes long. Take a second here to pull your thighs towards each other. Draw in, finding that tone, that length. And just shift side to side. We don't necessarily just want to automatically just go sinking into our joints. We want to find that connection before we just sink into it and relax. And then start to mindfully come on down. If it's super easy for you to just plop down into your joints in this pose, then maintain a little bit of that squeezing your legs together. If this pose feels like misery to you, then really focus on that soft breath, that inhale that fills into your back ribs, and the breath that lets it all go. Go ahead and shift it on back. We're going to come down to our back. Slowly make your way down. Bring your knees into your chest. Just give yourself a little hug. And for this last pose before we enter Shavasana, let it be yogi's choice. I'm going to do Happy Baby, but I invite you to do maybe another twist, your legs up the wall, maybe an inversion like shoulder stand. This is going to be your choice of a final pose that you want to do in your practice before we do Shavasana. So join me in whichever pose you've chosen for a few final breaths. Allow this pose to be a transition, a place where you start to gather in preparation for Shavasana. One more breath. And slowly start to come out of your pose. Release your legs down. Arms open to the side, palms facing up. Allow yourself to settle into your mat. Allow your breath to soften. So you come into your final resting pose, Shavasana. Pose of relaxation and integration. Remain in Shavasana for several more minutes, allowing yourself to sink into your body, rejuvenate yourself just before you move on with the rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time to come practice with me and for your dedication to moving your body in ways that feel good. Namaste. I hope to see you on the mat again soon.